You can access the Calculate box from both the progress report and from the work plan. If you had the indicator on your previous year's QIP, calculating your current performance using the Calculate box would normally happen in the progress report section of the QIP. One important thing to remember is that the progress report and the work plan are linked for any indicator with a self-reported current performance. What that means is that if you calculate your current performance from your organization's data source using the Calculate box in the progress report, Navigator will automatically enter that same current performance in the work plan for this indicator. If you choose to work on the same indicator for this year, both current performance must remain the same. If you choose to not work on this indicator for this year, you will need to follow the steps in the video titled Steps When Not Selecting a Priority Indicator to remove the current performance from the work plan. Some key points. You will need to have your data ready. Please review the technical specifications on our webpage for the indicator you will be working on so that you know what data you will need. For the example I will be using, you would need to gather the data collected from the Inter-RAI Resident Experience Survey in terms of number of responses to the survey question mentioned. For long-term care homes, you will also need to know the total number of beds for your long-term care home. I will demonstrate using the indicator % of residents who responded positively to the statement, I can express my opinion without fear of consequences. So select the indicator and click on Edit. You will see last year's current performance and the target that your organization set. Click on Calculate. A box will open that contains all of the specific choices that residents can select for this indicator question when they complete their survey. Enter in the total number of responses for each specific response choice, such as the number of residents that selected rarely, or the number that selected most of the time, and so on. And as you can see, Navigator tallies all of the survey response numbers that you've entered so that it calculates a total number of surveys for which you actually got responses, or you perhaps did not get a response, but you actually sent out a survey. You made the effort to share the survey with 122 residents. For my specific example, I'm using a long-term care home with 150 long-term care beds. Scroll down, and once you have all the responses to the specific survey questions entered, we're going to then save. So we have now calculated our current performance to be 45.08. If you've only just started collecting data for this indicator, you also have the option in the Calculate box to select Collecting Baseline. If you don't have access to your data, you can also select Not Available. This would be highly unlikely if you're using the Inter-RAI survey or the NHCAP survey. In some cases, this indicator may have been incorrectly selected for your QIP last year, and you now realize that you don't want to use this, that you don't use this survey tool. In this case, you could enter Not Available. When you look at this indicator in the work plan, you'll see that the current performance now appears 45.08, which we calculated. And also, you will see that the total surveys initiated appears, and the total number of long-term care beds appears in the comment section. When you look at this indicator in the work plan, you will also see that this current performance appears in the work plan for this indicator. I'm just going to show you that by clicking on the work plan. Scroll down to that indicator, and there is your current performance, 45.08. Okay, I'm going to take us back to the progress report. And I'm now going to show you a new resource in Navigator called Sample Size Calculator. So Navigator now has a link in Navigator that can help you determine your survey sample size and determine how many residents you need to survey in order to feel confident that the results that you've got actually reflect your target population response. Determining sample size is important because samples that are too large require time and resources without really adding anything to the learning, while samples that are too small may not provide enough data to obtain quality improvement decisions. You can locate this tool by opening up the measure section for this indicator and clicking on the question mark next to priority. I'm going to go back to the work plan. I'm going to show you where that lies. I'm going to go to that indicator. There it is. We open up the measure section. We go to priority. I'm going to try and hold the box, and there's the sample size calculator. You can also locate the sample size calculator. Cancel out of that. In the change idea section by clicking on add new change ideas, and it's under best practices and change ideas, sample size calculator. So you can reach it from either section. So here's how the sample size calculator works. We first have to find something called the confidence interval. And the confidence interval actually reflects the response range based on the sample size. And we want a lower confidence interval because a lower confidence interval is better. So the confidence interval is calculated by inputting the confidence level, the actual sample size, and the population. The percentage that's in here is a default percentage. You can leave that. It's used to anchor the calculation using the worst case scenario. So we're going to choose our confidence level, and if we choose 95% confidence level, it means that you have 95% confidence that the result of 45% that you're reporting actually represents the entire population. For sample size, we're going to enter the number of surveys that we initiated, which was 122. And for population, we're going to enter the number of beds in our home. And then we are going to click calculate. So with a sample size of 122 for this 150 bed home, the confidence interval would be 3.85. If you recall, the reported measure was 45%. Now apply your confidence interval to your result of 45% by using plus minus. 45 plus 3.85, which equals 48.85%, and 45 minus 3.85, which equals 41.15%. That gives you your range of 41.15% to 48.85%. So you would be able to report with 95% confidence that when using a confidence interval of 3.85, between 41.15% to 48.85% of residents reported positively that they could express their opinion without fear of consequences. A smaller range is preferred from a confidence perspective. The second question you may wish to answer is, what is the ideal sample size for you to have confidence in the results while not oversampling? So for this, you'll need your confidence interval, and for the example, we're going to use 5%. 5 to 10% is used most frequently when calculating sample size. We're going to need the population, and for our example, our home had 150 residents, and what we want our confidence level to be, and we're going to use 95%. So use the box entitled Determine Sample Size. It's already defaulted at a confidence level of 95%. We're going to add in our confidence interval, which we decided was 5, and our population, which is 150. and we're going to click Calculate. And as you see, it's giving us a sample size needed of 108. So what that's telling us is that for our population of 150 residents at a confidence interval of 5 and a confidence level of 95%, we would need to survey 108 residents. And if you recall, we surveyed 122 in our example, so we actually oversampled. A note here, this is an ideal scenario. In the real world, it may not be possible to sample enough people to obtain narrower ranges and have more confidence in the results. As well, in long-term care, most homes would likely be using a sample of convenience, knowing the challenges with getting a random sample. With sectors like hospitals, they use a third-party vendor. They are satisfying the random sample for you. We also recognize there are restraints on your resources, so this tool is offered really just to help you look at your organization's best scenario. You don't have to use it. All we're asking is that you do your best. More information about sample size is provided through the sample size calculator link provided in Navigator. This concludes our video explaining how to use the current performance calculate function in Navigator for long-term care.